The crash site, the sky was red. Smoke rose in thick black columns. A transport ship had fallen from orbit, broken into burning metal pieces across a rocky desert. Sharp winds carried ash, and nothing moved, except one human. Mara. She crawled out of the wreckage, coughing, blood on her lips. Her suit was torn and her helmet was cracked. She pulled it off and gasped for breath. The air was thin, dry and hot. Her eyes burned from the smoke. Her ears still rang from the crash. She didn't remember how the engines failed. 1 minute, she was fixing a power core. The next, alarms were screaming. Now, she was alone. Emergency beacon, she muttered, holding her side. Where's the beacon? She stumbled back into the wreck. Sparks flew. Fire danced across wires. The beacon was there, but broken. No way to call for help. No way off the planet. Her hands shook as she picked up a metal bar to use as a weapon. The desert outside was wide and empty with strange orange rocks and deep canyons. Then she saw it, a figure moving across the sand. Tall, not human. She froze. The figure stopped too. It looked at her, then raised its hands, slowly, not in attack. Its silver armor glowed in the sun, but there were cracks in it. Like it had survived the same crash, Mara stepped back. What are you? The figure spoke in a deep voice. The language was strange, like soft growls and static. But then it tapped its chest. Kyle, he said. Mara didn't speak his language, but she understood that much. A name. He pointed, at her. Human. She nodded slowly. Mara. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Kyle looked around, scanning the burning ship. He pointed toward a broken cargo pod nearby. Shelter, he said. Mara looked at the pod. Half buried in sand, but better than nothing. She was weak, her ribs hurt. Her oxygen levels were low. If she stayed outside too long, she would die. So she followed him. Inside the pod, it was dark but safe. The walls were thick. Kale pushed debris aside and sat down heavily. He removed his helmet. His skin was pale blue, with glowing veins near his temples. His eyes were bright silver. Mara stared. He looked strong but tired. His arm was bleeding. She didn't say anything. She sat on the other side of the pod and closed her eyes. Time passed. Neither spoke. That night, the planet changed. Outside, the wind howled louder. Strange lights flashed in the sky. The ground rumbled softly, as if the planet itself was breathing. Mara shivered. She wrapped herself in a survival blanket. Kale was still awake, watching her quietly. Suddenly, a loud roar echoed through the canyons. Mara jumped. What was that? Kale stood. He picked up a metal piece like a weapon. His muscles tensed. Another roar, closer. Mara crawled toward the small opening. Outside, something huge moved in the dark. 4 legs, glowing eyes. It sniffed the air. She backed away. Kale, she whispered. He nodded. He understood. They stayed still all night, barely breathing. By morning, the beast was gone. Sunlight returned. Mara looked at Kale. He looked at her. For the first time, they shared a feeling. Fear. This planet was deadly, and they were alone. No food, no water, no rescue. But for now, they had each other, and that was the only thing keeping them alive. The sun rose again, red and cruel in the sky. The desert heat was stronger now. Mara woke up with dry lips and a heavy head. Her body hurt, but her mind was alert. She remembered the beast's roar last night. They had survived. Barely. Kale was already outside. He stood on a rock, scanning the distance with sharp alien eyes. His silver armor was dusty, his skin dry. He looked like a statue, still and quiet. Mara stepped outside the broken cargo pod, holding her side. "We need to find water," she said, even if she knew he didn't understand. Cale pointed to the east toward a canyon with shadowed cliffs. "Resource," he said in a low voice. They walked together, carefully. They didn't talk much, but in silence something strange happened. Trust started to grow. The canyon had sharp rocks and dry bushes, but deep inside Cale found something. A thick plant with green liquid inside. He broke it open and gave some to Mara. She hesitated, then drank. It was bitter, but it kept her alive. Cale showed her more plants, more ways to spot hidden signs of life. He knew how to survive, and now so did she. On the way back, they found pieces from another ship section, metal, wires, fabric. "Shelter?" Mara said, pointing. Kyle nodded. They worked together, dragging the parts to the cargo pod. For the next 3 days they built. Walls, roof, storage space, a safe entrance for night. Kyle used alien tools. Mara used human logic. It wasn't easy. Sometimes they argued. She wanted to sleep near the heat coil. He said it was unsafe. He wanted the doorway sealed with bone from the beast they found dead. She thought it was disgusting. But slowly, the shelter began to feel like something more. Not just protection. A home. That night the wind returned, but weaker. The shelter held firm. They sat near a small power lamp, eating dried alien roots and leftover rations. Mara looked at Kyle. He was sharpening a metal blade. She asked, "Do you have family?" He didn't answer at first. Then he touched his wrist, where a small burned symbol glowed faintly. "Gone," he said simply. She looked down. "Me too." The silence this time was heavier. Later, as Mara prepared to sleep, she heard Cale moving closer. He placed a thermal blanket near her and stepped back. She looked at him, surprised. "Thanks," she said quietly. He didn't speak, but before turning away, he said one word: "Together." That night, Mara had strange dreams. In them, she was not alone. Someone held her hand. Someone protected her from fire and storm, and the hand was not human. She woke up breathing hard. The lamp was out. The desert wind had stopped, but Kyle was still sitting near the door, watching, guarding, always watching. In the morning, they found strange footprints around the shelter. Not from the beast. Something else had come. Something bipedal. Intelligent, Cale crouched and touched the sand. His face hardened. He looked at Mara with warning in his eyes. "Not safe," he said. Mara felt her stomach twist. They were not alone on this planet, and whoever, or whatever, had walked outside last night wasn't here to help. The desert wind had gone silent, but danger still breathed close. Mara sat inside the shelter, sharpening a tool with tired hands. Her eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. She hadn't forgotten the strange footprints. Neither had Cale. He hadn't spoken much since dawn. He kept checking their perimeter, making quick marks on the sand around the pod. Traps, signals, warnings. Mara watched him from the shadows. There was something different about him now. Tense, alert, like a predator sensing something unseen. She finally spoke. "You think they'll come back?" Kyle looked up. Yes. That one word was all it took to freeze the air between them. Later that day, they heard it. Not a roar. Not the wind. It was whispers. Faint, like voices carried by dust. It came from the canyon. Cale raised his blade. Mara grabbed her improvised weapon. Together they moved out. They found nothing, just broken rocks and old ship debris. But as they turned back toward the shelter, something moved above. A shadow leapt from the rocks. It was fast, gray-skinned, with long limbs and sharp teeth. Cale pushed Mara aside and took the hit. The beast sliced his side open with jagged claws. He roared, his alien voice deep and angry. He swung his blade and drove it into the creature's neck. It fell, twitching, dead. But Cale collapsed too. Mara rushed to him. His side was bleeding, blue and thick. His armor was torn. His breathing was fast. She tore open a med pack and began. "Working. Stay awake," she said. He winced. "Burns." "You saved me. Now let me save you." Mara worked for hours, cleaning the wound, using heat foam, stitching what she could. Cale groaned once, but mostly stayed silent. When she touched, near his rib, his body glowed faintly. She paused. "What is that?" There was a strange scar there, a glowing crystal-like mark under his skin. It pulsed with soft light. Cale opened one eye. "Bond mark," he said. "Bond?" she asked, confused. He didn't answer. Instead, he took her hand and placed it gently on the glowing mark. Mara felt a jolt, like warm electricity flowing into her palm. For a moment, she saw things, not images, emotions, loneliness, war, fear, hope. Cale quickly pulled away, breathing hard. Mara blinked. "What was that?" He turned his head. "You understand me now?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know how. But yes. That night, Cale was weak. He lay near the lamp, eyes closed, face pale. Mara stayed close. She cleaned his bandages and kept the fire burning. Suddenly, he spoke softly. Not in his alien tongue, but in broken English. "You are strong." Mara smiled sadly. "Only because I had to be." Silence. Then he said something that made her stop breathing for a second. "You feel alone. Same as me." She looked at him for a long time. This was not just survival anymore. Something else was growing between them, and it scared her. The next morning, Kyle sat up slowly, wincing. His wound was still bad, but healing fast, faster than human wounds. Mara looked at him. "You heal like that always?" He shook his head. "Only now. After you touched the bond." She didn't understand it all, but one thing was clear. Their connection had changed something, in both of them. Suddenly, the shelter sensors beeped. Motion detected. Mara grabbed her scanner. There were life forms approaching. 2, not beasts. Sentient. Armed, Cale stood, blade in hand. "We fight." Mara stood beside him, gripping her tool. "Together." He looked at her, then nodded. "Together." The heat was changing, not just outside, but inside them too. The desert sun was cruel now, burning hotter with every passing hour. Food was almost gone. The alien plants Cale once used were drying up, and the rations had turned to crumbs. Inside, the shelter, the air grew heavy. But it wasn't just hunger or thirst, it was something else, something deeper. Cale sat in the corner of the shelter, sharpening his blade. His wound had nearly closed. The skin around it glowed faintly, but no longer bled. Mara sat on the floor, trying to fix the broken transmitter. Her hands were tired, her body ached, but her mind was restless. Every time she looked at Kyle now, her heartbeat picked up. It didn't make sense. He was alien. She was human. But the way he moved, the way he looked at her, so protective, so focused, lit a strange fire inside her. That night, a hot wind blew through the broken cracks in the wall. It was dry, but charged with energy. Mara couldn't sleep. She rolled over and saw Cale sitting at the entrance, watching the desert. He wasn't wearing his armor, only a thin cloth over his chest. His body shimmered faintly in the moonlight, his muscles marked by glowing veins. She stood up and walked to him. "You okay?" she asked quietly. Kyle nodded. "You feel different?" Mara paused. "Yes." They both sat in silence, watching the stars above. The moons were large tonight, 3 glowing orbs lighting the sky. Mara whispered, "I keep thinking I'll wake up back on the ship, back home." Cale turned to her. "You are not home. Not anymore." There was no sadness in his voice, just truth. Suddenly a tremor shook the ground. Both of them stood up. In the distance, glowing lights flickered. Not from fire, but energy. Strange alien drones were scanning the wreckage. Raiders? Scavengers? Mara grabbed Kale's arm. What do we do? We hide. They hunt tech and people. They crawled deep into the side shelter, under old metal and emergency foam. They stayed there close, so close Mara could feel his breath on her face. His skin was warm, warmer than before. Her heart raced. The danger outside only made the moment more intense. Kyle looked into her eyes. You are scared. She nodded. But not of them. He tilted his head. Then what? Mara swallowed. Of what's happening between us. Kale didn't speak. He simply reached out and touched her hand. Her fingers didn't pull away. The drones passed. The lights faded, but Mara and Kyle didn't move. They just looked at each other. And then they kissed. It wasn't planned. It wasn't slow. It was urgent, like the planet itself pushed them together. Kyle's hands were strong but gentle. Mara melted into his arms, every thought of Earth or war fading from her mind. In that moment, she didn't care who he was. He was hers, and she was his. Later, wrapped in thermal sheets, they lay together in silence. The heat outside was nothing compared to what burned between them now. Kale whispered, "Bond is full." Now, Mara looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He gently placed his hand over her stomach. "Your body may change." She blinked. "Wait, are you saying—" He nodded slowly. "New life? Maybe." Her heart stopped for a moment. She looked down at herself. No, that's not possible, right? But deep inside, something already felt different. And the way Kale was looking at her, it wasn't just with desire, it was with hope. The next morning, she woke up feeling strange. Her stomach churned. Her body felt warmer, and Kale was already outside, staring at the rising sun with a strange expression. Mara stepped beside him. He didn't look at her, just whispered, "Life begins." She looked at the horizon and suddenly felt afraid, not of death, but of the future, and what might already be growing inside her. Mara stood still, staring at the horizon, her heart pounding. Kale's words echoed in her head. Life begins. She wanted to deny it, to say it was impossible, but her body already knew the truth. Something inside her had changed. That morning, her reflection in a cracked piece of metal told her what her mind didn't want to accept. Her skin looked flushed, her veins pulsed faster, and her senses felt sharper than ever before. Kale watched her from a distance. He didn't push her. He just waited. Finally, she sat down beside him in the sand. "Kale," she whispered. "How could this happen? We're not even the same species." He turned to her gently. "The bond chooses, not the body." Mara let out a shaky breath. "I don't understand your world." He placed a hand on her chest, just above her heart. "But you understand me." She couldn't argue with that. Later, she ran a scan using the emergency med device. Her hands trembled as the results appeared. Life form detected. Status, early development. DNA, hybrid, human, unknown. She dropped the scanner. Kale stepped forward and caught it before it hit the ground. He looked at the screen, nodded once, and said only one word. "Ours." Mara sat in silence for a long time, staring at the floor. Everything was quiet except her thoughts. "I don't know how to raise a child on a planet like this," she finally whispered. Kale kneeled before her. "You are strong." She looked up, her eyes burning. "But I'm not ready." He nodded. "Neither was I. But I will protect you. Both." Days passed. The planet grew more hostile. The sky stayed red. The winds howled louder at night. And creatures circled the shelter from a distance. Kyle and Mara began planning again. This time not just for survival, but for the future. They reinforced the shelter, stored clean water, found edible roots with soft minerals that Kale insisted were good for life. One afternoon, Mara stood by a cliff, breathing in the strange air. Her hand was on her stomach now. Often, without thinking, she felt the pulse of something soft, faint, but real. Behind her, Kyle joined silently. "There is life inside you," he said. "Not just blood, not just bone, but light." She laughed softly. "Light, huh? That's a pretty name." Kyle tilted his head. "Is that its name?" Mara smiled. "Maybe, but not everything was peaceful. One night the transmitter crackled. For weeks it had been dead, useless. But now, a faint signal was reaching through. Distress beacon activated. Signal detected. Mara sat up fast. "That's impossible. It was broken." Kale checked the device. "No. Something is responding." She looked at him. "Rescue?" He didn't answer. The signal wasn't human. It was alien. And it was moving. Closer. They decided to hide the transmitter, powering it down again. Kale didn't trust the source, and neither did Mara. But the signal came back again the next night. And this time, it spoke in broken, cold language. "Hybrid, we know. Surrender the child." Mara dropped the scanner. Kale growled low in his throat, standing tall. "They know." Mara backed away. "What do they want with my baby?" Kale looked at her, eyes glowing. "They fear it." She felt her knees go weak. Her hand was on her belly again. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Now it was war. Kale stood with his blade in hand, facing the wind. Mara stepped beside him, holding a shock lance she had repaired. They didn't need to speak, because the message was clear. They would fight for the child, whatever it took. The fog rolled in at dawn, thick, gray, and strange. It wasn't natural. Mara stood outside the shelter, her hand resting on her belly. The baby had not even taken its first breath, but already, the galaxy wanted it gone. Kyle stood nearby, scanning the fog with his glowing eyes. His blade was drawn. His armor glinted in the weak morning light. They both felt it. Something was coming. The distress signal had returned the night before. Louder, clearer, and colder. "We know. The hybrid must be erased." Mara couldn't sleep after that. She sat by Kale all night, whispering fears she hadn't said out loud before. "What if they take it from me? What if I can't protect it?" Kale looked at her and said, "Then they'll have to kill me first." As the fog thickened, it muffled every sound, like the planet itself was holding its breath. Suddenly, Mara's motion sensor beeped. 1 red dot. Then 2. Then 4. They weren't beasts. They moved in straight lines. Soldiers. Kale stood in front of her, silent. His breath came slow. His hands didn't shake, but Mara could see the truth in his face. He didn't expect to survive this fight. Then they came, shadows in the mist, tall, armored and silent. Alien warriors with smooth black helmets and weapons that glowed red. They surrounded the shelter without a word. Mara stepped beside Kyle, holding her shock lance. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. Kyle didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "We are not alone anymore." The first shot came fast. A beam of energy sizzled past Mara's ear, hitting the wall behind her. Kyle roared and charged. He was faster than they expected, his blade slicing through one helmet clean. Mara fought too, clumsy at first but fierce. She shocked a soldier from behind, watching him twitch and fall into the sand. But there were too many. Kyle was wounded again, a cut across his shoulder. He staggered, then kept fighting. Mara tried to reach him, but a soldier knocked her down. She landed hard, her hand over her belly. The baby kicked, her eyes snapped open. "No, not like this." With a scream, she grabbed a loose metal rod and swung with all her strength. It hit the soldier's mask, cracking it. He fell. She ran to Kale. He was on one knee, bleeding, surrounded. She reached him just as the last soldier raised his blaster. Then, boom! Powerful wave of light exploded from Kale's chest, bright and blinding. Mara fell back, shielding her eyes. The fog vanished. Every soldier was on the ground, unmoving. Kale lay flat, his body glowing softly. Mara crawled to him. "Kale! Kale!" He opened his eyes slowly. The bond protected us. She touched his face, tears falling. "You almost died," he whispered. "Not yet. I promised to protect you." The sky began to change. Black clouds faded. A beam of sunlight broke through, touching the shelter. The planet was silent again, but Mara's heartbeat was loud, because the baby was still alive, and Kyle was still breathing. That night Mara wrapped Kyle's wounds and held his hand. He looked up at her with tired eyes. "Soon, the child will come." Mara nodded. "Yes, and when it does, we'll be ready." He raised her hand to his lips and said, "We already are." Outside, the stars returned, but something new moved in the sky. A ship, human markings, a rescue beacon. Mara stood at the door, eyes wide. Someone's coming. Kyle stood beside her. The galaxy had tried to kill what they created, and failed. Now, the rest of the universe would see what came from love, born in the fire of a dead world. The stars shimmered above the desert sky. A rescue ship floated gently down, engines humming in silence. Its silver body reflected the ruins of the crash site below. Dust curled around its landing gear. Mara stood frozen, one hand over her swollen belly, the other holding Kyle's hand tightly. They had survived the crash. They had fought off hunters, and, now as the baby kicked again inside her, humanity had returned. But would they understand what had happened? Would they accept what she had become? 12 hours earlier, pain ripped through Mara like lightning. She screamed, dropping to her knees inside the shelter. Kyle rushed to her side, eyes wide. "It's time," she gasped, gripping his arm. "It's coming." Kyle had never delivered a child, not even in his own species. But he didn't leave her side, not for a second. He removed his chest armor and spread soft thermal cloth beneath her. He held her up, supported her weight, whispered in both languages to keep her calm. The child inside her moved fast, too fast. Whatever grew within her was not just human, not just alien, something new. The labor lasted only 2 hours. Kyle worked with shaking hands. His forehead was soaked with sweat. Mara cried out, her voice raw from pain. Then suddenly, silence. A small, wet cry broke the quiet. Kale held the child, in both hands, eyes wide in shock. The baby was small but glowing faintly under the skin, pale but not weak. Its tiny fingers curled around Kale's thumb. A girl. Alive. Perfect. Mara lay back, exhausted and shaking. Kale knelt beside her, gently, placing the newborn in her arms. She looked down and cried. "Is she okay?" she whispered. Kyle nodded slowly. "More than okay. She is. Power." The baby had silver eyes like Kyle, but she had Mara's skin, soft and warm. Her breathing was steady, her body strong. She stopped glowing after a few minutes, but the light stayed behind her eyes. They named her Nova, because she was born of fire and stars. That night, Kale didn't sleep. He sat outside the shelter, holding a blade in one hand and watching the dark. He didn't expect peace to last, and he was right. Just before sunrise, a loud beeping woke Mara. She looked at the scanner, a signal. This time, human. A shuttle was approaching from orbit, a rescue ship. She recognized the signature codes. Kale entered the shelter, his jaw tight. "They come?" She nodded. "They will take you." Mara looked at him. "You mean us?" He shook his head. "No, not me." But Mara didn't argue. She stepped outside with the baby wrapped in cloth, standing beside Kale as the ship descended. The ramp opened with a hiss. 3 humans stepped out, armed, cautious, confused. One woman stepped forward. A medic. Survivor. Identified. Name: Mara Knox, engineering officer. Crash report Nagar A07 confirmed. Mara nodded slowly. The woman looked at the baby in her arms. Is that yours? Mara swallowed. Yes. The medic blinked. How long ago was the crash? 41 days. That's impossible. Mara smiled faintly. Tell that to her. The soldiers spotted Kale. Guns lifted. Alien! Someone shouted. Get behind us, ma'am. Mara stepped in front. Of Kale. No. The squad hesitated. She spoke clearly. He saved me. He protected me. He is the father of my child. Stunned silence. The commander stepped forward. What you've done here? It breaks every rule of first contact. Do you even know what this means? I know she's alive, Mara said, holding Nova tighter. That's what matters. They ran tests on Nova inside the rescue ship. Scans. DNA maps, vital signs. What they found frightened them. She had no known match, not in any human database. Her cells could adapt to almost any atmosphere. Her brainwaves showed both logic and emotion working in perfect sync. One technician whispered, She's not just a baby. She's an evolution. Mara overheard. She didn't care about the science. She just watched her daughter sleep in a clear pod, small hand pressed against the glass. That evening, Kale stood at the edge of the loading ramp. The humans had given him a choice. He could not return to Earth. Not yet, not until the council approved. Mara stood with him, baby in her arms. I won't go without you, she whispered. Kale touched her cheek. You must. For her. Tears welled in her eyes. She needs you. She has you, he said. And I have no world without you, she replied. Kale looked at her and then at the stars. Then softly he said, Then let us make a new one. The humans were shocked when Mara announced her decision. She wasn't going home. She and Kale would stay behind. The planet was harsh, wild, dangerous, but it had given them love and life. And now, it would become their world. The humans left, promising to return, with aid, with supplies, maybe with permission. Mara didn't wait for that. She had Kale, and she had Nova. That was enough. 5 years later, Nova ran barefoot across the red sands, laughing. Her silver eyes sparkled. Her hands glowed when she touched the rocks. She could lift small boulders with ease. She could speak 3 languages. She could breathe both thin air and thick fog. Mara watched from the cliff, smiling. Kyle stood beside her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. They had built a home now. A real one. Shelter, food farms, defense towers. But more than that, they had built a future. One day, Nova stood at the old crash site, looking at the stars. Mom, she said, do you think there are more like me? Mara crouched beside her. Not yet, but there will be? Mara smiled. One day. Nova looked down at her glowing hand. I'm not just human. No, Mara said softly. You're something greater. Nova looked up, and for a moment, her eyes glowed like starlight.